Namaskar student friend, I Durgesh Kumar welcome you all to my YouTube channel Arthshastra Durgesh ke Sath. In today's video, I will be talking on economic reform in India with special reference to New Economic Policy 1991. I will posting this video into different parts, and in this video I will be talking about basic concepts behind the New Economic Policy 1991. I request you to subscribe my channel, like and share it, click the bell icon, and you can comment also. The learning objective for today's lesson is to understand the overview of economic reform and to understand the need and importance of economic reform. These two objectives I will be covering in this part 1 of the video, and in another part, that is in the next video, I will be covering the objective to analyze the rationale behind the New Economic Policy 1991. We all know that the economic policy have changed the whole economic structure of India. In 1991, in the wake of an exceptionally severe balance of payment crisis, the need for a policy shift had become evident much earlier. As many countries in East Asia achieved high growth and poverty reduction through policies which emphasized greater export orientation and encouragement of the private sector. India took some steps in this direction in the 1980s, but it was not until 1991 that the government signaled a systematic shift to a more open economy with a greater reliance upon market forces, a larger role of the private sector economy, which gives greater reliance to the market forces, including foreign investment and restructuring of the role of government. The government was close to default. Its central bank had refused to give new credit, and the foreign exchange reserves had reduced to such an extent that India could barely finance for 3 weeks. In this video, I am going to discuss about that what were the causes, what was the reason behind the New Economic Reform 1991. I will be more focusing in the part 1 of the video, that is the pre-New Economic Policy 1991. Before going for this, first we need to understand what is economic reform. The term economic reform broadly indicates necessary fundamental changes or structural adjustment to existing economic policy to achieve good economic growth in a country. The main features of the economic reforms are as: number 1, economic reform normally indicate to deregulation or at times to reduce the role of the government and more involvement of private sector. It also includes to eliminate deformities caused by management or the presence of administration and to overcome from the market failure by liberalizing the economy. Economic reforms requires gradual reduction in import and increase in export. These adjustments also requires market changes in order to make economy more flexible. One and a very important thing in the economic reform is to reduce the fiscal deficit and the deficit in the balance of payment and to increase the foreign exchange reserve. Reform is broader concept. It's 360-degree change in the economic system. The whole economic structure gets changes. Like in India's case, we wanted to shift from the agricultural economy to the industrial economy. Unfortunately, it has not happened. We have shifted from agricultural economy to the service sector economy. But the whole structural change leads to the economic reform. Let's understand what is economic policy. An economic policy refers to the action that the government and the central bank, in our case Reserve Bank of India, take in the economy to achieve economic growth and full employment. There are many other objectives what the government and the Reserve Bank of India wants to achieve. Economic policy is a policy with respect to changes in the level of taxation, government budgeting, changes in the money supply and money demand, setting up of the interest rate as well as labor market, national ownership in terms of the public sector unit or a private sector unit, that is devaluation, disinvestment, and many other areas of the government intervention into the economy. So, economic policy is a policy of the government and the Reserve Bank of India basically to achieve good economic growth with full employment. In this video, I will be talking more on pre-1991 economic system in India. We have adopted mixed economy. Now this mixed economy, when we adopted, that was more of socialist economy than the capitalist economy before 1991, because majority of the undertakings were owned by the public sector or by the government. Indian economic policy after independence was influenced by the colonial experience, which was seen by Indian leader as exploitative in nature, and by those leader exposure to the Fabian socialism. So another reason behind the acceptance of the mixed economy was the two main power, that is USA and the Russia. Both of them, they were on the different side, and the US have adopted capitalist economy whereas the Russia was having the socialist economy. We were under the huge control of British government even after the independence. So we never wanted to have any clashes with the United Kingdom. At the same time, the Russia, since Russia was a very good friend of India, we never wanted to have any clash with Russia also. So we never wanted to go on either side. That is another reason why we adopted the mixed economy. In this system, India would be a socialist society with a strong public sector but also with the private property and democracy. We adopted Mahalanobis model in the second 5-year plan, that is from 1956 to 1961. Mahalanobis model is a model of development of a country from cities to villages. We adopted a centralized planning approach and the 5-year plan policy. Before 1991, we were having the protectionist policy. What is protectionist policy? It is a policy where the import substitution is given more importance. That is to safeguard our small scale industry and the large scale industry by giving more subsidy to the imported industrial product. Government monitoring, government intervention at the micro level in all businesses were there, especially in the labor and the financial market, and a large public sector business regulations were there. So there was a lot of government intervention before 1991. What was the drawback of the pre-1991 economic policy? Some of the points I have enlisted here. Number one is licensing Raj. Now that is the major problem we were having before 1991. Licensing Raj was nothing but the permit Raj. In this, the businessmen used to find it very difficult to start their business. There was a lot of red tapeism. The second is loss making and sick public sector unit. The public sector unit or the government owned unit have started making loss, and many of the public sector units have become sick. There are various reasons such as underutilization of resources, mismanagement of labor, political interference, and the management of the public sector units were incapable. The proper capitalization of fund was also not there. So therefore, because we know that before 1991 majority of the production was done by the public sector units, when they started making loss, overall production have gone down. At the same time, the revenue to the government have also gone down. Another problem that we were having the closed economy. It means that we have had a lot of restriction on the foreign direct investment, foreign institutional investment, and we used to charge a lot of taxes on the imported products. In this closed economy, we became less competitive over the period of time. The reason behind the less competition was high prices of our domestic product, that is inflation. Over the period of time, the population of India have exploded and the production have not increases in the same ratio. That lead to a lot of inflation in our economy, and because of high inflation, high prices, our products have become less competitive in the world market. So overall export have gone down and import had continuously started increasing. Another problem was fixed exchange rate. India was having fixed exchange rate till new economic policy 1991. Due to the fixed exchange rate, we had to face a lot of problem. Many times we went for the devaluation for the correction of balance of payment crisis, but because of the fixed exchange rate, government used to suffer a lot of losses in import and export and balance of trade. Next drawback was fixed rate of interest. Before 1991, the rate of interest used to be decided by the government. There was no flexibility. Since there was no flexibility, the problem happened to the demand for money and the supply of money. As we know that when the rate of interest goes down, the supply of money it increases, and when the rate of interest goes up, the supply of money can be controlled. Since it was totally controlled by the government, it was very difficult to control the supply of money and demand for money, which has led many a time problem in the money market as well. The last point here I am discussing and want to discuss that very high direct and indirect taxes. Before 1991, the taxes was too high, both direct tax as well as indirect tax. Since the taxes was too high, the people they used to refuse to pay the tax, and because of which the government was not able to generate the revenue. The import duty, that is the custom duty, was too high. On an average, the custom duty was more than 300% before 1991. The very high custom duty have restricted a lot of import, which has indirectly impacted the production of small scale industry in our country. Failure of pre-1991 economic policy have led to economic crisis in India, and this was the huge and the biggest crisis we have ever faced. The crisis have impacted into increase in the fiscal deficit, increase in the balance of payment deficit or adverse balance of payment, continuously fall in the exchange reserve. There was a Gulf crisis in the year 1980s, which has led to increase in the oil prices, and we know that there was a high inflation or rise in prices domestically for all goods and services. At the same time, there was a huge political instability from 1988 to 1991. We have faced 4 prime ministers during that 4-year period. There was a poor performance of the public sector enterprises. Now all these have clubbed together, which has led to the economic crisis of 1990s in India. Now I will stop here, and in the next video we will learn and cover the rationale behind the new economic policy 1991 in more detail. We will also discuss interesting fact that forced us to go for the new economic policy 1991. Thank you. I request you to subscribe and like my channel. Also to share the link to the other student to get benefit out of it. Thank you. Bye bye.